Welcome to our week on the topic of planning. And it's really important when you're looking at promotion and advertising to really have a good plan in place. And part of that comes from basically doing strategy development or strategic planning. And it's a process by which you make sure that whatever you're working on aligns with whatever is fundamentally at the heart of what the company is, and the sort of output of that is a long-term, profitably and growing company. So it's really important to know what the strategy is, and you've really got to ask, what's the organization's main activity? I mean, a lot of organizations really don't understand this and know what's going on, and they've got to really think about it. The other thing is, if you have to determine what your goal is and how you're going to reach it, and really the best answer for doing that is a marketing plan. And the important part about marketing plan is that it's a written document. It's extremely important to do that. And it's a written document that, in the process of just actually writing it down and then taking a look at it, is a lot different than just talking about it. And it provides a sort of a guidepost, if you will, for everybody to kind of look back and see how everyone's doing. So the reason you write it is it helps you to compare where you are versus your actual and expected performance. It very clearly states what the activities are. Everybody can see that because they're in written form. It's a reference for success of future activities, and it really helps you and forces you to look at the marketing environment, and essentially you go in with your eyes open, if you will. So every marketing plan has these components. There's a business mission objective, or statement there is, about what the company is about. There are objectives that are aligned with what that statement is. You conduct a situation or a SWOT analysis, SWOT standing for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And then you come up with a marketing strategy that's specifically lined up with a target market. And the marketing mix, or the 4 Ps as we know them from our marketing principles classes, are the product, the place, the promotion, and the price. And those are the dials, if you will, that you can adjust internally in your organization to be focused on whatever that target market is. So from that you have some implementation, you evaluate how you're doing, and you hopefully put controls in place and go back and see how you need to adjust your plan accordingly. So it's really important to know what your business mission statement is. It's kind of like, if you look at the mission statement, if it's too narrow, you have something called marketing myopia, which is basically, if you have myopic vision, it's kind of tunnel vision. You're too narrow. If it's too broad, you don't really have any direction. But if it's just right and aligned with the company's core competencies, you get to focus on markets that are served and benefits that customers seek. So the analogy I like to give to, it's kind of like Goldilocks and the 3 Bears. One is too hot, one is too cold, the other one is just right. Same thing with the business mission statement. When you're looking at establishing marketing objectives, it's very important that they meet these 4 requirements. They're realistic, they're measurable, they're time specific, and they're consistent with the priorities of the organization, or aligned with what your company's good at and what they want to do. This objective is a good example of that. You achieve 20% dollar market share in the luxury pocketbook market within 12 months of a product introduction. So this assumes that you're in that market, so hopefully consistent with the priorities of the organization. It's time specific because it's 12 months. It's measurable because it's got numbers, 20%. And hopefully it's realistic. If you're doing 100% in a year, probably not. 20% in 1 year might be, depending on the industry that you're in. Positioning is very important because what you're doing is, and actually before we do that, let me move quickly here. I'm going to post this particular plan summary. This is something that I actually developed back well over 10 years ago. This was done in 1999, so it's approaching 14 years actually. And it's a detailed report that shows you the plan that was actually developed for a company. So it's kind of an application of some of the concepts that we're talking about this week. And in it, it has details of what we did as an organization to put together a plan for our company moving forward. So there were a lot of meetings involved. We developed a business and mission statement. We did our SWOT analysis, or strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and looked at that for our company. We did a competitive assessment, looked at what the key issues were. We looked at our markets and our capabilities and what we were good at and not so good at. And then from that, we came up with some observations of what we were doing as an organization and a company. We had specific goals, which you see here. These were financial goals. Some of it, and some of those financial goals would translate themselves into sort of market and market plans. So we had lots of detail, lots of people were involved in this process. If you read this, you'll find that things that probably don't make a lot of sense to you, but in general, it gives you an idea of how we were evaluating our products and markets and our companies and our competition, and seeing how we played against those. And from that, put together some specific targets that we were looking at and goals. For those of you that aren't familiar with what a semiconductor is, semiconductors are actually the glue and the building blocks for most of the electronic products we use today. Without them, cars wouldn't run the way they do. We certainly wouldn't have the fuel efficiency of cars without semiconductors, or electronic control, if you will. Your cell phone doesn't work without these devices. This is actually a picture here in the corner, the top right hand corner, of a semiconductor wafer. Each one of these is an exact copy of the other. It's an individual circuit that's then put in packages like you see here. They're encapsulated or covered in plastic. There are interconnections that are made, and then they go on circuit boards. That's an example of some surface-mounted semiconductors. There's another example there. So, computers, cell phones, iPads, laptops, tablets, iPods, any kind of control device that you see here. And there's a good example there of a printed circuit board that has a number of semiconductors on it. Without these, it wouldn't work, and that's the business that we were involved in. We actually had a factory that made these particular kinds of products that are pretty much used. And there's an example there of an older version, I would imagine, of an MP3 player. So that's the business we were in, and that's what this plan is for. And even plans that, or businesses that have complex products, certainly need, probably more so, certainly need these kinds of products and efforts, these kinds of plans, business plans, and then from that, specific product marketing plans as well. And that, you can kind of look at that and spend some time and see the efforts that companies go to try to understand what these are and put in these market plans so that everybody knows what's going on. And that's one of the key benefits of a marketing plan. And in part of developing a strategy and putting a marketing plan together, it's knowing how to position your company or your organization in that regard. And positioning is a very specific process by which you try to influence customers' overall perception of a brand, product line, or say an organization. Porsche is a great example. It's a very high-end, very carefully crafted and positioned car line, and there are specific types of people that are part of that. So we talked a little bit about planning and the important part of that planning and how it works, and I just showed you that example of a strategic plan. Product positioning is a strategy that you use to make sure that your products line up with what customer needs and wants are, and that they're distinctive and different from your competitors. So if you think about Subway, it is a fast food restaurant, but they position themselves quite differently, saying that it's better fast food because it's prepared fresh, it's healthier, and obviously Jared, being a long time Subway customer, and being able to lose the weight that he did and keep it off, by definition implies that it's a healthier, better way to eat than going to McDonald's or Burger King, for instance. And there's a technique called perceptual mapping that's kind of interesting, where you can display graphically, two or more dimensions where products and brands are relative to your customers. And there's different ways to position products. You can do it based on attributes, whether it's more expensive. Whether it's you can look at attributes like it's faster, it's softer, it's higher quality, that sort of thing. You can position on price and quality, how something is used or what its application is, who the actual product user is, the product class. You can position based on competition, and then emotional elements as well. So there's a lot of different ways that you can put categories, if you will, or characterizations on these graphs. And very often products can be you can actually kind of change how people perceive them. It's kind of important in relation to competing brands. You think about the iPod, there were MP3 players or digital music players around for years before Apple decided to throw their hat in the ring. And what they did is they repositioned their product as being different for a lot of reasons. They used the track pad, which was a real interesting innovation. The way the units were styled and put together, the actual size of the units, the battery capability, the song handling capability, all these things were very different, and they did a great job of repositioning it to the point where the iPod became the default MP3 player and pretty much just disrupted the whole industry. Apple did a great job of that when it came with the iPhone. They certainly did that. Tablets were around forever. The iPad was, a great example of repositioning. Apple TV hasn't worked out that way yet. They're still trying and struggling through that, but they certainly have changed the dynamics in many, many markets by repositioning, very simply, their products and making them the default products for the market. Okay, here we go. Thought I lost that one for a second. So this here is a perfect example of a perceptual map that you can very easily see how certain car brands position themselves. So on the x-axis you have conservative to sporty, on the y-axis practical and affordable to classy and distinctive. And you can throw these car brands down and see that, you know what, a BMW is definitely a classy and distinctive product, but it's definitely more on the sporting side. Where if you think about a Mercedes, definitely classy and distinctive, but tends to be driven by the more conservative group. Makes a lot of sense. And then you can sort of look at the other car brands that are here. But what's interesting is if you look at what Cadillac, which is if you see and look at it in the dotted area here, they used to be considered more of a conservative, classy, distinctive sort of quadrant. So it used to be sort of the grandmas and the grandpas of the world, the bankers, people a bit older. But what Cadillac has done over the past 15 or 20 years is they've definitely moved their product line being into the more sporty arena versus the classic one. And all you got to do is look at their commercials over the past 5 years and see the kinds of people they've been going after, the styling of the cars, the whole focus on performance, and something that's a bit different. So you're talking about, just look at the commercials, the people in the commercials. You look at the sort of the mature young women. You look at just the Escalade. I mean, if you've ever watched MTV Cribs, I don't even know if that show's around anymore, but it was at one time. All of these athletes and these rappers, they all had their tricked out Escalades in their garages. They certainly wouldn't have done that with a Fleetwood or a Cadillac Eldorado, which was some of the product lines a few years ago. And just look at the names that they give cars. Just the name Escalade, the CRX, all these sort of futuristic kinds of names, and the styling and the performance. They've done a great job of moving themselves from this quadrant to this one, and you can do that. It takes a lot of time and effort, but it's definitely doable. So these maps can do a great job of showing how you position yourselves versus your competitors and how customers see them. The other thing is when you're looking at doing planning and marketing planning, you need a budget. And one of the things that I've also posted as well in the supplemental folder is for the same company that you have the strategic plan for, I actually gave you a copy of our budget, which we put together for, this is the same fiscal year that the strategic plan was done in. And we were about $100 million-ish company at the time. and our marketing budget was about $1.7 million. So that was a little less than 2%, which was light for our company or light for the industry of the world. Typically, our peers spent anywhere from 3 to 4% on marketing. We spent less for a number of reasons. But you can kind of see here the categories. It's a little a little bit complicated. Don't really pay attention to what you see from column G over. These were allocations done by 3 major product groups that we had in companies. Just look at sort of this main line here. Let's look at just column B, if you will. So if you look at this, clearly advertising was the biggest number. It was almost half, about $800,000 of the $1.6 million was based on advertising, and the breakdown there was, just ads themselves in advertising space was over $500,000. We had outside agencies that did work for us. We had something called fulfillment and tracking, which was a big number. So there was a lot of money just tied up in basically advertising. Trade shows, we spent $155,000. Literature was a big number for us. So this is information that was spent giving it to our customers. We had the largest line item being, or close to being, was a website back, 13, 14 years ago. Websites were new, so people were spending a fair bit of money into it. We had data books. This is basically collateral that we had to give our customers to help them learn and understand our products. We had a product selection guide. We had a corporate brochure. So, another large ticket item, $400,000 for that. We had another big line item, which actually, where is it here? Sales rep training. So we spent a little over $100,000 on training our people. We would bring them back once a year. A couple, 3 days, we'd bring back manufacturers' representatives, put together, we'd put them up at a hotel and spend a fair bit of money training them so that every year they knew what were going on with our products, with our markets, and we'd learn a lot of things from them because they were the closest people to our customers and very important to us. So those line items there between sales rep training, advertising, trade shows, right, where we would actually go to industry-based shows. We had Electronica was in Munich, Germany. APEC was out in California. Those are our 2 big shows. And then we had some smaller other boutique shows that we would go to and meet our customers. So those are the big line items. Capital was basically some equipment that we would use in support of our products and our marketing effort. So that kind of gives you an overview. Once you get a budget, you got to know where to spend it and how to spend it. Here in the advertising piece, we would plan ads, and we had a product plan for those particular ads and the ones that we wanted to promote. So that was always a big piece of the effort and what we ended up doing. So the point here by showing you this is that we actually did spend a fair bit of time promoting, planning, and putting something together, and that's an example of that. A couple things that I want to make note of. So on the discussion board, we've got 3 specific form. This one actually asks you to put together your own perceptual map looking at groceries in the area, and there's a list of them there. This one asks you to look and have a more detailed look on the strategic planning and the kinds of efforts there and how that might apply. And then this third form actually talks about, if you look at Chapter 7 in the textbook, you'll find the first couple pages there are dedicated to talking about diet drinks and Diet Coke, or Coke Zero, if you will, and the efforts that people go into trying to understand and position products into different markets or into different demographics. So I think that's kind of an interesting area to sort of look at for product positioning. This particular chapter does a lot about talking about campaigns and integrating campaigns, setting up objectives, how do you measure them, and then how do you position your products. So we've kind of talked about that. Actually, on page 205, there's an example of a perceptual map. It's a bit different. It's done on cars, which is a sort of an easy thing. And if you look at that perceptual map, and I'm looking at it right now, picked the wrong one here. Let me go back real quick. Not that different here. If you're looking at the, then this is, I'd gotten this chart from something completely different a couple years back. pretty similar in terms of where you see the positioning there. BMW being in Porsche being in similar places. Cadillac isn't shown on the one in the book, but we show actually how that particular division of General Motors translated from one to the other. And you actually don't see, well, you see Nissan there, although you don't really see it on here. So some similarities in the perceptual mapping process, and hopefully you'll enjoy building your own perceptual map and putting it together and discussing it and showing it with others. So planning is very important. Making sure you're aligned with the strategy of the company is very important as well. And I think this chapter gives you a good overview of a couple of those elements and how they sort of work. So I did send out a note regarding adjustments for timing for the fan page projects coming up. I might post a separate video on that as well, just to make sure everyone's clear. I have gotten team names from everyone, which is great, and I think that's hopefully moving forward nicely. So with that, we'll wrap it up for this week. I hope to see you on the discussion board soon. And make sure that you view everyone's post and get involved early and often if at all possible. Thanks.